Namaste and welcome to the 10th episode of the Self-Improvement Program. I'm really happy that we have come to this 10th part because time has just gone flying, and today we are in number 10 week. Today we can talk about speech and silence. Let us look at the idea of speech and silence from the perspective of communication. Remember, in the first episode, I spoke about listening, because by listening, we learn much. But whatever we have learned, who we are, and whatever we are doing with our life is not known to anybody unless we speak out. So speaking is the mirror to judge a person. What kind of a person you are, who you are, is judged by speaking. The spoken skill is therefore the second of the communication skills. We call them LSRW, but listening, speaking, reading, writing. But people think that speaking is most important. I didn't want to tell you only about speaking. I thought I would share my ideas about speech and silence both. When we speak, you must see that we can only speak when we are breathing out. So we have to keep a little silent when we are breathing in. But that is the pattern of human speech, so nobody knows that we are breathing in. We do it automatically, breathing in, speaking while breathing out. And then, of course, pause. When the speaker says something very important, what does the speaker do? The speaker stops for a few seconds. This is for the listener to imbibe. This is for the words to be concretized in the mind of the listener. So that also is silence. Speech and silence, they go together. We have to understand them together, and that is why we need to do this together. Remember that the first point is that we have to, for self-improvement, though we have to do them together. Now, first, let us concentrate on speaking. Why does one speak? This is the question you might ask yourself. Human beings are all the time speaking. Possibly the maximum used communication skill is speaking, because sometimes listening, we turn away our mind. We don't listen. But often while speaking, we can't turn off because everybody will know if you have stopped speaking. So you can imagine that speaking is very important. We speak when we want to give information. I'm telling you 4 things. Information. We want to tell somebody something. We speak. We also speak when we want to do persuasion, number 2. Persuasion means you are saying something, the listener does not agree, the listener does not believe in what you're saying. You go on speaking and speaking, giving various arguments till the listener comes to your point of view. Persuasion. Third one, negotiation. Negotiation implies that 2 people have 2 different ideas, 2 opinions. 2 people are fighting over some property. They said we have to come to an understanding so that property is half and half divided. What do? Negotiation. You give up something, the other person gives up something. Both of you come to an understanding. How can it happen? It can happen by speaking. And the 4th most important, inspiration. By speaking, one can inspire others. That is a wonderful way of speaking. Here I can give you the example of Swami Vivekananda's speech at the Chicago Parliament of Religions. He was totally an unknown person. He did not have even his identity card, because who would give an identity card to an unknown person, no invitation to the Parliament of Religions, no money, no shelter. He had nothing, but he spoke at the inaugural and he got a standing ovation. The thousands of people stood up. They started clapping for him. Why? Because his speech was inspiring. The ideas which he gave inspired everybody. This is what we have to keep in mind. The 4 aims of speaking. Let us now see how we can practice or how we can assess our speaking. I'm going to talk to you about the contexts of speaking. The first is prayer. Prayer is a wonderful context of speaking because we are speaking to the Almighty, to the divine, to God, or to a higher power, to somebody whom we trust as somebody who's much beyond, more powerful, more omniscient than the human being. This is what is prayer. Many people have excellent discipline of prayer. Small children, I have seen in many books you might read, how the small child, these are English books, literature books from other countries, where you find the little child, the boy or girl, goes to the bedroom, kneels down next to the bed, prays to God, thank God for this wonderful day, thank you for my parents, thank you for the food you gave me. Can you see? Talking to God as, speaking, the most important aspect of speaking, great discipline, lot of spiritual fervor, all these are taught in the single communication. So the context of prayer is very important. Usually, how do we pray? We say, God, give me this, give me that. I want more of this. I don't have enough of this. God is very cruel to me, and so on. Very rarely are we grateful. It is this great gratitude that makes the prayer as an important communication. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find page after page, Sri Ramakrishna is teaching us how to pray. He does many serious things. He does also very jovial things. He's laughing with those young teenage boys as though he's a teenager himself. He's using language which is very colloquial, language which is typically rural, but he's also talking about the highest spirituality. He's telling you, how should you pray? Consider God as your own. Would you feel terrible to speak to a person who's your own? You would not. So we have informal communication. That is the next point, and that is speaking to our family, speaking to our siblings, our friends, our parents, uncles and aunties. This is informal communication. Next to prayer, this we do maximum. We are constantly speaking. So that is an excellent context of communication. If we want self-improvement, we should observe ourselves in these contexts. Take the context as the measurement. So do I pray? When I pray, how do I pray? How is my speaking when I'm praying? When I'm talking to my family informally or, just casually, how is my communication? Then you come to the next point, and that is thinking. Thinking also is a very powerful mode of communication. We call it self-communication. Self, you're communicating with yourself. Psychologists often talk about positive self-talk. You might have heard this term, positive self-talk. Then what is it? That you're talking to yourself, but you're talking positively. So all our thoughts, if we keep monitoring, we often argue with each other. We often are indecisive inside our mind. So we need to analyze all this. All this comes under speech because it is very difficult to silence these things. Then we have formal context. Speech formally is very important. Informal, if you find, just like a household speaking, you read the Gospel of Holy Mother. Sharada Devi speaks. The way she speaks, very kind, very loving, calling everybody my child, showing by her words appreciation for every little thing. Somebody brought 2 paisa worth of sweet. Then she would say, oh, this is the most precious gift for me. Sister Nivedita made for her a lampshade with paper, only paper, nothing precious. She preserved it. Even after Sister Nivedita was not there, she would keep those gifts inside, saying that my little baby, my little child is not alive anymore, but her memories are alive. So you can imagine the power of thought and the power of speaking. Then we have formal context. If you're a student, your teachers, your elders, your principal, all these people. If you're working, your bosses, your colleagues, all these people. So what happens? Our communication becomes formal. Then we have to remember, when I'm talking to you now through these videos, I'm being very formal. I'm very careful in what I'm using, how I'm using it, etc. Structurally, I'm using complete sentences. Very often in speaking, we use only a single word. If somebody asks you a question, you might not answer the full sentence, but only a single word, informal. But this is formal. What we are doing now is formal. So there is a difference between informal and formal, which is important for us. If we analyze the speeches all around, suppose you watch television, you see the news, or you watch movies, or you look at speeches of famous people, which are all available on YouTube these days, great speeches, then you will get the idea. I told you about inspiration. I can give you a wonderful example of a great Swamiji whom we had when we were growing up here in Ramakrishna Math, Hyderabad, Swami Ranganathanandaji. He was our mentor. He trained us individually, personally, made us what we are today. And he was such a great speaker. Every Sunday he would speak in Hyderabad. Once a year for 1 month, he would go to Europe because he was invited to speak. Every year he would go. And then, of course, he would not, feel that he's a great speaker because others were inspired by him. He was never heard saying that, I'm a very great speaker. The first Indira Gandhi Award was given to him. He was a great, world famous personality. You can get his speeches also on YouTube. If you watch, you will find so calmly, so clearly, so beautifully, like that. Many young Swamijis today, I can't name them all, their speeches are available online. You get speeches of great political leaders, great religious leaders, great social leaders, all kinds of speeches in all kinds of languages. I'm not only talking about English, because here it is self-improvement. We are not really worried about the language, but what we are worried about is how we are going to better ourselves, how we are going to benefit ourselves. So what I would like you to do is remember the 4 aims of speaking I gave you, that is information, persuasion, negotiation, and inspiration. Look around and see which of the communication, which of the speeches fit into which of the categories. You can easily make an entire graph saying that which of them are inspiring, which of them are informing, and so on. That will improve your ability to speak, your fluency, your ideas, your context, and your style. Each of us needs to develop a style of our own. No 2 people can do it in the same way. And if you look at all the context which I told you, formal, informal, prayer, self-talk, etc. These are all contexts which you can use in order to benefit, in order to become better in your communication. Now, I would like to tell you about silence. Speech and silence go together. So, whenever we are speaking, I already gave you this example, we have to perforce keep silence because we have to breathe in. Then there are also silences when we want to highlight something important. You say something and then you keep silent. In a meeting, if you attend a meeting, you will find, the person who's addressing the meeting will often do this. Speak a sentence or speak a group of sentences and then keep quiet for some time because he or she is expecting some feedback, some response. I'm getting emails about these uh, videos which Swami Srikantanandaji is kindly uploading on the YouTube channel of Human Excellence Ramakrishna Math, Pune. So when I get these emails, I'm able to hear their communication, although it is written, but I can see it as communication. Now, there is much silence also, because many people might hear and not speak at all. So we have to understand. The greatest context of silence is meditation. Meditation, which teaches us how to empty our mind of thoughts and sounds and everything. In meditation, you should become unaware of all that is happening around you because you are totally concentrated inside. I'm sure Swami Srikantanandaji must be having courses on meditation online these days. He does a wonderful job because he was here in Hyderabad for a very long time. And we have attended these courses. So you can imagine, if we meditate, we learn the importance of silence. Then we should be able to appreciate solitude. Solitude, the ability to appreciate solitude is very, very important because unless we enjoy silence, unless we know how to go into ourselves, we cannot discover ourselves. To understand who I am, I need to go away from everybody. This is what Sri Ramakrishna used to say. I'm sure I've mentioned this somewhere. He would say, Bone, Mone, Kone. 3 words he used. In the forest, nobody goes today. Mone, inside the mind, or Kone, in a corner. So you go into a corner that is away from the din of company. Then otherwise go into your mind. And then what you do, you enjoy the silence. The silence will teach you the capabilities which you have. We are doing self-improvement. So we should know what we are capable of, what we are incapable of, how we progress, how we do not progress. These things we cannot understand if we are constantly busy with sound. Sound and silence. Silence is very useful because even when we are sleeping, we are not really silent. The mind is very active, and therefore we have to search for silence. Then we have to not speak when there is a conflict. Avoiding conflict by keeping silent is one way of resolving conflict. For resolution of conflict, very often avoidance is good, and for avoidance, silence is good. The more we escalate the conflict by speaking more and more, the heated exchanges which we have between people, groups of people or individuals, etc., the conflict becomes more and more. It is like putting ghee into the fire starts burning. Instead, what you put is, you put some buttermilk, or you put some water, the fire is extinguished. This we have to remember, that silence has many uses. You want to utter something negative or something hurtful. This is what Holy Mother Sharada Devi says, that, never speak an unpleasant truth. Be tactful. So we keep silence. You feel like saying you have self-control. Silence is more winning. You are going to win your battles much better with silence than you are able to do it. Silence also indicates your mood, you know. Sometimes if you're sitting silent with a terrible expression, people know you're angry. Sometimes you're sitting silent with a very disheartened expression, people know you're depressed. So silence also gives a non-verbal kind of communication by saying what that person is feeling. Great exuberance can be also expressed in total silence. That is one way of controlling ourselves. That is so important. Then we also have silence when we have, an attitude of learning. Instead of constantly saying, I know best, I know everything, if we keep silent, we can learn so much. As a teacher, with my 40 years of experience or 45 years of experience, I can tell you that much can be learned from the students. The teacher might think, I can only teach you. You can't teach me anything. But it is a two-way process. If the teacher has the ability to be silent, when the student has something important to communicate, you can understand how nicely this communication will go on. That silence is a learning experience. Silence is something which helps us to analyze. So when we talk about speech and silence together, what we do is we try to put ourselves into all these contexts. This is self-improvement. Every time I'm giving one or two examples, but I'm hoping that for every one example I give, each listener will have at least 100 examples. Maybe someday, somewhere, I might meet some of you, and then we can exchange our ideas. Now we can't meet because of the pandemic. That is why I mentioned to you that put your ideas into the comments box. Then we can, it is like communication. Although you're writing, you're not speaking, but that is your thought, that is your speech. This way, we can become more confident. This way, we can become more articulate. And this way, we can also appreciate what is good in my speech and what is good in my silence. What is good, what I have to learn to become a better speaker, what I have to learn to become a user of real silence, how I can use silence as the most important tool in my life. That these things we have to learn, each of us. Just because I'm speaking to you doesn't mean that I know everything. Please don't ever make that mistake. All of us are on a journey of self-improvement. Each one of us is progressing. Maybe somebody is in the first step, somebody is in the 5th step, somebody is in the 10th step, somebody has gone to the 100th step, but everybody is moving forward and everybody is trying to improve themselves. So how are we going to improve it? Unless we think, unless we make an effort. And therefore, speech and silence requires that you have to work very hard towards analyzing. First, find a context. Look at your past experiences. Then starting from today, your speeches and your silences, you give marks to them. Note down in a book, and then you can give marks. You will be able to get a lot of good ideas by doing self-effort. Please remember that there is no substitute for self-effort. Namaste and thank you.